Hello, this is Dr. Della Welch again. We're coming to the end of our contract law review, and what we're looking at today is another essay question. The key to essay question is to know what are the important facts and what information is simply background. This starts out with background. One day when Mrs. Dodds and her father, Professor McPherson, were out driving near Seaside Bay, their car collided with a truck. Okay, all of that is simply background. And it said it looks like it injured Professor McPherson unconscious. I would underline that because it shows he doesn't have capacity to contract, and with grave head injuries, was rushed to a small hospital nearby. So that shows he's not probably going to have the capacity to contract. Mrs. Dodds, okay, here's important information, uninjured but somewhat hysterical. I would underline somewhat hysterical. Accompanied him, so that goes to capacity. When they arrived, the only surgeon at the hospital was Dr. Baer, B-A-Y-R-E, and he had just completed an exhausting 3-hour operation. So if Professor McPherson needs a surgery, we have a very tired doctor here who's just done a 3-hour surgery. After Dr. Baer had examined Professor McPherson, he told Mrs. Dodds, "Your father needs emergency surgery." And he says, "Frankly, I'm too worn out to undertake it." And then it says, Mrs. Dodds, quite frantic, I would underline quite frantic, seized Dr. Baer by the shoulders. Well, that's a capacity issue. How many people seize the doctor by the shoulders when they go to the doctor? And said intensely, "Doctor, you must. Money means nothing to me when Daddy's life is concerned. I will see that you are paid a fee of $25,000. Oh, doctor, I promise." Well, let's go see if we have an offer. There must be present intent. Well, we had some issues involved that the daughter, Mrs. Dodds, was quite frantic and hysterical and so forth. But we could say, on the other hand, it appears she's the only one that will be able to contract. So we could find that she does have the capacity to contract. Be sure and give both sides on the one hand and on the other hand. Then we look, was there definite and certain terms? Now we have a problem. Is the $25,000 to save Daddy's life, or is it for the surgery? It's most likely for the surgery because the average person doesn't have the human powers to save a life. So, and then the offer is obviously communicated because she's there talking to the doctor. And then we look under acceptance. It may be a unilateral one where the doctor just does the surgery. Now we look at consideration, and here's a big issue. You could say it's the surgery for the $25,000, but the big issue, does the doctor have a pre-existing duty under the, I call it the hypocritical oath, but I think it's the hypocritical oath, to do the surgery because he's under some duty? I would say that would be beyond the duty because he's already exhausted from a 3-hour surgery. We don't want to kill that doctor. So you could say on the one hand and on the other hand, and then you can conclude whether there's consideration. But it says the doctor did do the surgery and the operation was performed with professional competence, but 4 days later the father dies, Professor McPherson. Well, if it was to save Daddy's life wasn't saved. However, this daughter has the benefit of a surgery that was done on her father. But Mrs. Dawes is very angry and says, "You'll never get another dime for me on that operation on my poor father." Well, what is happening here? It looks like a breach. She's not going to pay. So you would go through your analysis, and you would also cite the unjust enrichment, that certainly she's going to be unjustly enriched if she has the surgery on her father and doesn't pay for that. But it's important to go line by line, circle the names of the parties, underline the key words, and then mark the number of issues. So that is an important problem. Now we're looking at some of our other problems. We say here, A builds a fireplace for B and uses the wrong color bricks. A, who is the contractor, may still recover under what theory? A, material breach. No, he won't recover anything if it's a material breach. B, substantial performance. Yes, the contractor can say that the customer got substantially what they bargained for. C, anticipatory repudiation. No. D, none of the above. So the correct answer is B. The remedy of specific performance will most likely be granted in the case of a contract for the sale of land in Florida. So specific performance is usually granted where you have land or a unique subject matter, often called a unique chattel. A valid liquidated damages clause has the effect of limiting damages. That's true. Failure to mitigate damages limits the recovery to the injured party, and that is true. So there's always this duty to mitigate, to try and lessen your damages. Where there is no consideration for a promise, the agreement is A, illegal. That would be wrong. B, is not binding. That's true. Consideration is the plus element. That's the thing of value. That's the price of the promise. That's the glue that holds the promise together. So B is not binding.